Yeah, I just wanted to comment that and then the other speaker mentioned this earlier, being incorporated with the C Corp, you are an employee of that company, so you get a W-2 each year from your company to yourself because you are an employee. So that is
Yes.
one of the benefits.
Yeah, that's most definitely true.
I had two issues to discuss. One was a very interesting issue where your company does expert witness work.
Yes, yeah. we
So
do.
then, do you go to the hiring attorney and say, I am Kinetic River? Or you?
Yeah,
So
not hire,
that's a
right,
tricky-
contracting.
Yeah.
But yes, that's, well, so it was a question actually, so it was a question and a choice as to whether the contract should be with me personally or with my company. And I opted to go through my company. So all of the expert witness revenue has come through Kinetic River. So it came into the company and then I disperse it as I see fit, being the owner of the company.
But-
And decide to disburse in part of it as payroll
Yeah.
and part of it as, you know, distributions of
That's
profits.
straightforward. But in the court case and in the court documentation, it was you as a specific
Of course,
person,
yeah, 'cause-
not Kinetic River.
well, because it's hard to bring the company and plop it on
This
the
is
expert
important
witness
because
stand, but
in other contexts, this would provide protection, you know, like Kinetic River
Sure.
is building something
no,
and it
but
doesn't
it
work.
is- the
and-
contract was definitely with my company. So my company, in a sense, assigned me to work on that case. So, you know, the company isn't gonna be, companies can be taken to court, but a witness is generally not gonna be a company. A witness will be a person. And so the person that my company decided should be assigned to this particular job was me. And so I went as the expert witness, but under the aegis of Kinetic River.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, but from the point of view of the earlier IP discussion, would this provide a layer of protection if I would proffer my services, if I would select as a one-person LLC, I would select myself and proffer me to a hiring law firm? Is that done? Is it strange?
My understanding is that there is a layer of protection. It comes because there's a corporation and it has its own finances and its own legal entity, it's, right, all of that. Whether or not you, in the course of, you know, performing your duties, satisfy the various criteria that would make it difficult for an outside audit or entity to so-called pierce the corporate veil is another question. So if you operate in all respects as a corporate, does this work? If you operate on all respects as a corporation, as a separate entity from yourself personally, then it becomes easy to show that everything you do is as a corporation. Right? And so there's like all the points that I made about having a separate bank account, having a separate office, a separate mailing address, blah, 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 blah. All of these things add to the, are you a real business or are you not?
I have a C corporation and I do a lot of, we make products, we invent products and do hardware and software, but I don't pay myself. I am self-funded and every benefit goes to the company, not to me, so I don't get paid. I chose not to because I am investing in my company.
Sure.
So how does that work?
Well, that's completely up to you. Yeah, I've certainly at times not paid myself anything because there was nothing to pay myself with.
No, even I want to invent, to develop a product with the money instead of paying salary to myself.
Yeah, you're not forced to pay a salary. So you can choose to pay salary to yourself or not pay salary
Yeah,
to
I
yourself.
don't pay, then I develop product, I buy tools
Sure.
and things like that.
You can do that.
Yeah.
My understanding,
That's okay.
not a lawyer.
Yeah, it's a C corporation and.
Right. Yeah, so, and by the way, if you decide to be an S corporation, you make the election.
I'm a C
You,
corporation.
I understand, I'm just saying you generally. You can also decide to withdraw the S election and formally re-become a C corporation. So it's not like forever, but once in some time, right? 5 years? Okay, so once you change to C Corp, they don't let you change back to S right away, I guess is the message.
Can you compare and contrast corporation CS with LLC? Do you have some basis to give me a feeling of the differences of one versus the other?
Not really.
Thank you. Just one.
One thing my accountant told me is that in California, an LLC, if you make a bunch of revenue, but you lose money, you have to pay taxes on your revenue, not on your profit. This is something I've heard. I'm not sure, which is kind of a big thing.
Completed operations, but yeah.
I think Jonathan here may have something to say about that.
And he is a lawyer.
We have a few others here. No, what I was just going to say is, one of the difficulties that comes up, and which I explain to people, is that if you are a professional, the corporate form doesn't insulate you from liability for professional acts. So the liability limitation is not one of the benefits. So like if I get sued, even if I had a professional corporation, I'm still personally liable for malpractice. The other thing is that the difference between an LLC and a C corporation or an S, you still pay the $800 minimum franchise tax pro fee to the state. That fee is no different. The purpose of the LLC entity, as I understand it, was to allow small businesses to have simpler steps to operate. So you don't issue stock, you don't have to have meeting minutes. The formalities of maintaining the corporate entity are simpler. You have an operating agreement and so on. So basically it's intended to make it simpler for a small business to operate as a corporation. And it's confusing because the term limited liability company sounds like it's somehow more limited than another kind of company. But it's still the same corporate form. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, well, I had one question to that. So with an S Corp, one of the benefits, let's say you have a bunch of different activities that you do. You do consulting, you're making a product and so on. One concern is that every time money flows from one entity to another, you have to pay taxes. But like with the S, for instance, if you lose money here and you earn money here, in the end, they both add up and you get the benefit of your losses and your gains. How does it work for LLC?
okay, so I'm not a tax lawyer, and I defer a lot of questions to accountants. But the general idea, I think some of what you're talking about is the difference between being on a cash basis and an accrual basis. So when somebody talks about writing off a bad debt, it's because they declared income when they invoiced, and then they back it out when they don't get paid. But if you're on a cash basis, you pay tax when you get the money.
But I think what the fellow may be talking about is the fact that if you have different streams of income and you lose on one and you gain on the other, if you're an S Corp, everything flows to you on your tax return at the end of the year. And so on your tax return, you just add it all up. If there's minus and plus and they zero out, then you pay no taxes.
Well, and like the woman who was saying she doesn't draw any money,
Right.
the corporation is paying taxes on that income. She herself may not pay income taxes.
Right.
But the corporation is paying income tax.
Right.
The government's not going to let money get made.
Of course.
on tax. Of course. So she may choose to leave that money in the corporation or take it as dividends or
Right.
profits, but it's still going to get taxed.
Yeah, so one of the criteria or motivations for having an S Corp, at least was a criterion that I considered, was, well, if I'm going to get taxed on the profits, well, I might as well have the ability to distribute those profits and not get taxed on it twice. So I think it's a double taxation, right? With C Corp, you're going to be taxed twice. You're going to be taxed on the profits at the corporation level, then you distribute those profits to yourself, you get taxed again. With an S Corp, you don't. You get only taxed once at the personal level. You don't pay any taxes on the corporate side at all, except for $800.
And the other thing, that I would look at is, if you do work as an expert witness, the likelihood that you're going to have a claim against you or a lawsuit against you as an expert witness is probably relatively small. So you may not be concerned about the corporate profits or assets being subject to a claim by you as an expert witness. So having those two things be together may be okay, but there may be other circumstances where one activity could draw a lot of liability, and you wouldn't necessarily want the assets of the other
That's right.
operations.
Hi,
I've been an independent software consultant for 40 years, and generally, I work on a
Brilliant.
contractual basis. But I have had clients who said, for various reasons, some which made no sense at all to me, no, we cannot contract with you. You need to be an employee, either of us or of a third party that we will introduce you to. And my response to that has always been, oh, you want to pay half my FICA tax? Fine, as long as I get paid what I'm asking to be paid. My question to the people in this room, who I believe in this controversy and all of this stuff, are the people who are doing the work, not the people who are paying for the work. Why would you want to be an independent consultant? What is the magic in that if someone wants to pay half of your taxes?
Because they'll pay you less.
No, I insist on being paid what I want to be paid. Now, they may have to add a whole lot to that, that's fine with me, okay?
With respect to clause B, so clauses A and C are things that that you can control, but clause B is something that essentially the end customer controls. So is it an instant fail if, for example, you work for a typical case, you work for a body shop, staffing agency, whatever you want to call it, which provides software services to a software company, and you're a software person or hardware. You know, how will the body shops work around that? Are they renewing people? Are they getting out of California? Are they rewriting their contracts in creative ways to make it sound that it's outside the usual course of work?
I think the question relates to these body shops that have been making a big business out of being the go-between, so that these companies wouldn't hire, since they're not going to hire you as an employee,
Yeah.
they're going to contract to a company that is going to hire you.
Right, but
So the way I see it, they're going to have a ton of retirement. Do you see that as well?
W2. But
Not, it's the same idea of, they get a client, they take the client's wants, desires, details of the job, if you will. They open it up to these people and say, you know, who wants this? I want it, fine, put them together. It's really no different than what I was talking about.
You're not asking him the right question.
Yeah,
The right question is there
as a
W2
W2.
involved?
as a W2, for a W2 employee of a staffing company providing, let's say, software services to a software company.
It's a W2?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're working as a W-2 for a
Yes.
company,
Yes.
and they assign you out, you're either a leasing company or an employee services company. So, and that's under EDD rules.
Okay, so does that mean 1099s are going to go away?
No, well, but in that circumstance, it's always been that way.
Okay,
If you've been an employee of a company, and they say, okay, go to John next door, and I'm going to loan you there. You can loan an employee too, to keep making payments yourselves. So it doesn't change the status.
Okay, so the intent of my question is trying to find out, as of now, November 2019, what are the staffing companies doing? Are they laying people off in California and moving to Austin, Texas, as Apple is doing? What's actually going on? I'm not looking for speculation, I'm trying to find out the numbers.
Yeah, at this point, I think they're taking a look at their options, and I'm not seeing anybody that's moving very quickly in any particular direction.
Apple is apparently moving
If you
5,000
move-
contractor jobs
if you
to Austin,
move-
Texas.
If you move out of state, if you move your company out of state, but you're still having contractors do business in California, EDD law it's still the same as if you're in California yourself. Same liability.
Okay.
Two people that come on one comes twice a month, an accountant, somebody else who comes sometimes once a week, sometimes several times a month. In that case, they have to come to our company premise. In that case, are we covered, and I don't care which person answers, but
What kind of work do they do?
one's accounting and one is office, so it's on the operations side, not technical.
Accounting is considered technical. If they're coming to your office because that's where the files are, and then they need to look at your files, your work products in your
And
office.
computers, right.
Yeah, and then that's fine. If they just come in and sit down at the same desk once or twice every week, and nobody else sits at that desk and it's got your name on it, it makes you look like an employee, even if you're a CPA. Okay, so it depends on the circumstances of why you're going there. Does that make sense to you?
Well, we have
No.
enough space that, yes, they have their own desk, but they don't come in very often.
Well, okay, but the key then is that they come in because that's where the work is. That's where the files are.
Right.
That's the key.
So qualifies.
That's the key. Yeah, they can still be an independent contractor. Yeah.
Oh,
And before we move on, just a little aside, if you look at the law that this AB5 was based on in Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Connecticut, there is a second clause in B saying you need a different location. And California chose not to include that in your law, which is interesting.
Okay.
I have a very fundamental question. I'm an independent consultant, whether I am an S corporation or independent or not, and I contract with somebody to do some work, and it's later determined that that relationship violated AB5. What is my liability as the consultant?
So who made the determination? That's the question. If it's an EDD, nothing. It's a company. Company has to pay for it. If it's a tort situation, you know, maybe you committed some error or something, then that would still be personal.
It shouldn't have fallen under AB5. It wasn't an independent contract relationship.
Well, I mean, what I just said applies to both the law and to AB5. In other words, if the EDD comes in and says, oh, you've got, 300 independent contractors, guess what? They should all be employees. Well, those 300 independent contractors still walk around doing whatever they want to do. But not the company, yeah, they're not walking around.
So my liability, I don't really have any liability under AB5, except that companies may be reluctant to hire me as an independent contractor.
No. Let me give you my experience, okay? And this is not a legal opinion, okay? Even though it's what I, in essence, just said. There's nothing to prevent the EDD from coming after you once they made a determination that you were an employee, and it's a 3-year statute look back. There's nothing preventing them from doing it. I've never seen them do it, not once. And I can't even tell you the number of independent contractors that I've seen. I mean, literally thousands of independent contractors, and they've never gone after the
And just building on that, something I said earlier, which is the state of Massachusetts specifically doesn't do that. That they interpret the law as protecting the worker from a predatory company. And so they, as policy, do not punish the worker if somebody was misidentified. Typically. I mean, I imagine there's a case here or there, but that's how they typically look at it. Doesn't mean California's going to, just means that's how Massachusetts
How
does
long
it.
has the law been there in the other states?
Massachusetts, I believe, was 2007, and New Jersey, I believe, was a little earlier than that, and
Oh,
Connecticut.
quite a while.
Decade or so.